It's time to put the pieces together, talking about the Zen of Dreamweaver. You know what? It's all about balance. Dreamweaver is an amazing application. I think you already know that. That's why you're here. But as good as this program is, as much as it's going to help you to create sites of any complexity with ease, this program can turn on you and get really ugly if you don't organize yourself. So we're not in Dreamweaver yet. We're talking about organization. You go, oh man, I want to talk about that. I want to get in the program. Why don't you like to get in an airplane and not file a flight plan? Just take off. You know how fast you'd get lost? Dreamweaver with a bit of organization can really make this a fun thing to do. Let's start with a definition of what I think Dreamweaver is. If you look at Dreamweaver, really one word is communication. That's what websites are, aren't they? We're communicating something. Could be good, could be bad, but we're communicating. Communication can fall into a lot of different areas. For example, you could do a site that would be defined more as a marketing site. You could do one that's a little bit more like a storefront, a little bit of PHP, a little bit of ASP, a little bit of CSS, right? You could do a simpler site, informational, a little bit of HTML, maybe some CSS, a couple of links, a couple of photographs, and there you go. You could do family sites, which are about the same, and you could do things like topical sites, maybe on something that's currently going on that's really important to get people to come to it. Dreamweaver doesn't care what it is, because it will allow you to do literally anything that you want. So let's say that we have a project coming up. I work in a client-based business, so a client comes to me and says, Andy, I want you to do this. You might just decide you want to put together a family site, a storefront, whatever it is, or you might have a boss that comes in and says, let's do this. See if either you or your client or your boss will sit down long enough to answer 5 very simple questions. 5 questions that are really going to help you out. University studies show that if you follow this plan that we're talking about, you can save 20% on site development. 20%, that's 1 day in 5. So it's not too bad to go through these. Let's start out with asking a couple of questions that start with who? Who is the intended audience? Say, well, what do you mean? Well, let's just look at one aspect of that, like age, real quick. You got young people, you got adults, you got senior citizens. Now let's quantify those age groups. Young people is about the time, like say, when you start and you become self-aware as a person. And that can be different for different children. Could be at 1 year, could be at 2 years, could be 6 months, whatever, until puberty. And again, that number is flexible too, but that area we define as children. Understand those particular people are very curious and they have a very short attention span. So let's talk about color as it relates to age. I would use in my website super saturated, really brilliant kind of colors because that's going to get their attention. They're kids. Now let's go to adults. Adults are post-puberty to, in the 70s. Big area there. We don't like that kind of color, so I wouldn't use them. I would soften my colors down because very bright colors have a tendency to wear the eyes out. So although I could still get your attention by using colors, I won't make them so intense. Finally, senior citizens, 70s, 80s, 90s, we are living longer. Basically, we begin to lose the ability to see very subtle shifts of color like gradients, so I would avoid gradients with senior citizens, and I would be very contrasting with my colors. Now, we could spend the rest of this entire lesson series, the whole thing, just talking about this one question. I mean, fonts, everything else will be determined by who is your intended audience. The next question, what are the stated and unstated goals? How can you measure the success of your website unless you have goals? You have to write them down. Do not write them down after the site is up and you know the results. That's cheating. Write down your goals. Now, what are unstated goals? Well, a lot of companies have actual physical goals on what they want the site to do, but you may have some unstated goals of your own. Write those down too. I guess that makes them stated goals when you write them down. When is it due is my favorite one because everybody I work with thinks I can do everything overnight or yesterday. I love that one. We needed it done and we needed it done yesterday. When I have the project due date, a deadline helps me understand what I need to get done per day to get the job done. If I don't have a due date, then I don't know really what I'm doing. And it also, in very, very intense situations, allows me to call in what I define as the cavalry. Now, cavalry basically to me are people that I can bring into my organization with certain specific talents to help me get the job done. If you work in a corporation or company, you may have some very talented people that work with you that aren't on the web design team, but could have a skill or two that might actually be beneficial in terms of a crunch. When is it due? Next one, where will it be displayed? It's not always on a monitor. I do websites for iPhones now and all kinds of other devices. The design itself would be fundamentally different. I have to know where it's going to be displayed or I'm dead in the water. And finally, this one's for you. It lends itself to motivation. Most studies show if you like what you do, you're going to be better at it. For example, notice the little graphics I had up here after the who, what, where, when, why. If you know anything about PowerPoint, that's what I'm using, that's not really that easy to put together. It takes a little bit of work to put those graphics in there. If I'm not really motivated about doing this, but I'm getting paid, but who cares, I would probably say, we don't need the graphics. Why? Oh, yeah. Let's just put the text up there. It's going to be fine. But because I love what I do and I really love teaching and I really want to help you understand the process, I'm going to go the extra mile. Motivate yourself. Motivation is money. I understand that, but it could be a lot of other things. I do free stuff for my church. Why? I got a working theory. If I do free stuff for my church, I can do anything I want to on this planet, no matter how stupid, and I still get to go to heaven. Motivate yourself. It'll get done faster. It'll get done better. And remember, 20% savings over what we're going over right now. That's 1 day in 5. I know I've already said that, but it bears repeating. In the next segment, we're going to look at how we take this information that we now have and begin distilling it so we can get a plan going to get the site underway.